Hi everyone, in Algebra 3, today we're going to be going over lesson 69, which is on matrices and determinants. So a matrix is just going to be a rectangular array of numbers or symbols that stand for numbers. And the individual entries of a matrix are called the elements of the matrix and are always regularly in rows and columns. And the dimensions of a matrix are given by naming the number of rows and then the number of columns. So these are just some definitions that you don't really need to know, but are just some clarification for if you're reading through the book and you wanted to know what everything meant. So for determinants, if a matrix has the same number of rows as it has columns, the matrix is a square matrix, and that's what we're going to be working on today. Every square matrix is associated with one real number called the determinant of the matrix. So if a matrix is not a square matrix, it does not have a determinant. But what we're going to be doing is we're going to be finding that determinant. So this is the way you're going to see it. We're going to be working with 2 by 2 matrices where there are 2 columns and 2 rows. It's going to look like this. They're going to look like they're in 2 absolute value symbols, basically. And this is how you evaluate it. So it's going to be the top left times the bottom right minus the top right times the bottom left. And you just have to evaluate it from there. So that's how you evaluate a matrix. And I'm going to show you how this works. So we're going to just look at this example right here, 69.1. So again, you multiply top left times bottom right. So that'd be 4 times 7. Then you're going to minus top right times bottom left. So that would be -3 times 2. Now they may plug in letters in there, so you might actually have to solve for the letter instead, but this is how you solve for this one. So 4 times 7 is 28. Then I have -3 times 2 would be -6, but because of the minus sign, I'm going to make it a +6. So I have 28 plus 6, and I get 34 as my result. Okay, and that's how you're going to solve these matrices. So not too difficult, just like kind of memorizing the process and then just making sure you do that correctly. But what we're going to do is we're just going to work through the first 10 problems together of this lesson just to get you guys started. And I know it's been a long week with testing and all of that, so please just bear with me and let's work through the first 10 together. So number 1, the trip was arduous and it took 2 hours longer to cover the 160 miles than it took to come back. If the total time of the round trip was 6 hours, what was the rate going and what was the rate coming back? So we have, it took 2 hours longer to cover the 160 miles to come back. So the time coming back for number 1 would be the time going plus 2. And the total time of the round trip was 6 hours. Well, time back plus time going is 6. Well, if we plug that in, we'd have TG plus 2 plus TG equals 6. So if I subtract the 2, I get 2TG is equal to 4. So TG is equal to 2. Okay, so I know the time going is 2, which means the time back is equal to 4. All we're solving for is the rate going and the rate coming back. So RG, TG is equal to 160 because distance equals rate times time. So I have RG times 2 equals 160, which means that the rate going was equal to 80. And then RBTB is also equal to 160 because going and coming back is the same distance. But our TB is going to be equal to 4, which means the rate coming back is going to be equal to 40. Okay, and that concludes number 1. Now moving on to number 2, this is a problem that you're going to see a lot right now. And it goes based off of your lesson on jointly and inversely problems. But the real idea is that whatever you do to one side, you'd have to do to the other side. So this one says p varies jointly as the square root. So for number 2, I have p equals varies jointly as the square root of m. So square root of m and y squared, so times y squared, and inversely is x squared. Okay, so now what happens to p? So what happens to the left side if it says when y is doubled, so I would double y, so that would become 2y squared. M is quadrupled, so I multiply m by 4, so that'd be 4m. And x is halved, so that would be x over 2. So basically you're taking each of those variables and then doing like altering it in some way and keeping it in the same format. So if it's inside a square root, it stays inside the square root. If it's squaring it, you have to square the whole thing. You're not just doing something individually. So now I'm going to simplify that. So the square root of 4 is 2, but the square root of m would stay on the inside. 2y squared would change to 4y squared. And that would be over x squared over 4. Which I will need to get rid of that. So I'm going to multiply that by 4 over 1. Which means that I have 2 times 4 times 4, which is 32. I still have my square root of m. I still have my y squared, and that's still over x squared. So this equation right here should look exactly the same as my original equation. The only thing is that I am multiplying that equation by 32. But if I multiply the right side by 32, then I also need to multiply p by 32, the left side by 32. So it says what happens to p? You have to multiply it by 32. So if I multiply the right by 32, I have to multiply the left by 32. So it's basically just a whole simplification problem and finding out whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other side, and what's different about my right equation now versus what it was before. Number 4, these are a lot of just review problems. So it says 4 times the complement of an angle is 40 degrees less than 2 times the supplement of an angle. What is the angle? So just a quick reminder, complement is 90 minus x, and then supplement is 180 minus x. So for number 3, I have 4 times a complement. So 4 times 90 minus x is 40 less than 2 times the supplement. So 2 times 180 minus x, but it says 40 less than that, so I would subtract 40. Now if I distribute, I am going to get 360 minus 4x equals 360 minus 2x, minus 40. But if I see the 360 on both sides, those actually cancel. I'm going to move the 2x to the other side. And that would leave me with negative 2x is equal to negative 40. So therefore, after division, x is going to be equal to 20. Okay, so for that one, it was just complement is 90 minus x. Complement is the right, to give someone a complement is the right thing to do. So that would be the right angle, which is 90. Okay, now looking at number 4, we have Matilda Bell ran and ran but arrived 20 minutes late. If she ran X miles in K minutes, how fast would she have had to run to get there on time? So we have the distance is going to be X miles. This is number 4. She ran that in K minutes. Her time is K. She was 20 minutes late. So we could solve for her rate. It would be distance divided by time, so X over K. Her new distance, not going to change. The distance is still going to be X, but her time is going to change. So her new time would be her original time, but we have to take away 20 minutes because she was 20 minutes late before. Which means that her rate, her new rate, is just going to be distance, new distance divided by new time, which is k minus 20. And that is your result for number 4. Okay, so moving on to number 5, this is one of those concept review problems. Number 5 is, each year Darlene received a 20% salary increase over what she had been paid the year before. She worked for the company for 3 full years. If her total salary for 3 years was $29,120, how much did she make the first year? Well, her first year, we would just say for number 5, let's do that right here. For number 5, the first year, I would just say she would make F salary. Then the next year she'd get a 20% increase. So that would be a 20%, 120 of what percent of what she made before. Then in the third year, it would be 120% of what she made the year before. And that would be equal to the 29,120. Sorry, that doesn't really fit. So what I have right now would be F plus 1.2F plus 1.2 times 1.2, which is 1.44F equals 29,120. Now I'm going to add those all together. So this would be 1 plus 1.2 plus 1.44, and that would be 3.64F equals 29,120. So now all I have to do is take her salary of 29,120, divide that by 3.64, and that's going to tell me how much she made in her first year. In her first year, she's going to make $8,000. So I think she lived in poverty. Okay. Now these are going to be your new problems. So this is number 6, which is asking you to evaluate. So again, this is one of our new problems. And you're going to start in the top left, multiply by the bottom right, which would be -4 times 2 minus top right times bottom left. So it would be 6 times 5. That would give me -8 minus 30. So your answer is just -38. And if you forgot how to do that, I did put a little note right here how to solve for that equation. So if you have your matrix, it would be top left times bottom right minus top right times bottom left. And that's something I would probably write down if you don't have that written down already. Now moving on to number 7. So number 7 is similar, but we're actually solving for x. So you're going to start the same way. You do top left times bottom right. So that would be x times x minus 1. And then you would minus top right times bottom left. So it would be 2 times 3. And that's going to be set equal to 4. So you're solving for x. I'm going to distribute my x and bring my 4 to the left. So that would be x squared minus x minus 6 minus 4 equals 0. And that would give me x squared minus x minus 10 equals 0. Unfortunately, that does not factor evenly. So to solve for x, I have to actually do the quadratic formula. So that would be -1 plus or minus the square root, -1 squared minus 4 times a times c, all over 2 times 1. It's going to be +1/2 plus or minus. Well, that would be 1, and that would be plus 40. So the square root of 41. And that would be your result. So number 7 does not come out evenly. It doesn't come out nice. You have to basically just solve by quadratic formula. But to solve this matrix, you do top left times bottom right minus top right times bottom left. Now moving on to number 8. So number 8 is something that we worked on in the last lesson, lesson 68. So it says the focus of the parabola has coordinates 0, negative 3/10. So 0, negative 3/10. So this would be on my diagram. If this is 1, 1, 1, 1, negative 3/10 would be about here. That would be your focus. And the vertex is at the origin. So the vertex is at 0, 0. We know that our parabola is actually going to open up to the focus. So this means that my parabola is going to look something like this. My directrix is actually going to be a line that's equal distances away from the vertex to the focus as the vertex to the directrix, which means that if this is at negative 3/10, the directrix is going to be a line that's going to be at positive 3/10. Okay. My axis of symmetry, you'll notice, is just at the origin. So my axis of symmetry is going to be at x is equal to 0. Now for the equation of the parabola. My equation of my parabola is y is going to be equal to 1 over 4p times x minus h squared plus. Okay. My vertex is at h comma k, which means that my h is going to be 0, my k is going to be 0. My focus, which they give me, is at 0, negative 3/10. And my focus is always at h, k plus p. So if my h I already know is at 0, the k plus p is going to be equal to negative 3/10. My k I know is equal to 0, so 0 plus p equals negative 3/10. So I know that my p is actually negative 3/10. So p is negative 3/10, h is 0, k is 0. So now I'm going to plug that into my equation here. I have y is equal to 1 over 4 times negative 3/10 times x minus 0 squared plus 0. And now when I multiply that, that would be negative 12 over 10. I would have to take the reciprocal of that. So that would be negative 10 over 12 x squared. But that can be simplified. So my answer is going to be y is equal to negative 5/6 x squared. And that's going to be my equation of my parabola. My axis of symmetry I already found. My directrix I already found. And my parabola, my sketch of my parabola is right here. Okay, so again, that problem is just going to take some time to get used to. It's just a really long problem. And it just takes time. So number 8 and then number 9 is going to be similar. So I have this. I'm just going to go based off of what I just explained to you. So for number 9, I'm going to start with a diagram. So it says the vertex is at negative 3, 2. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2. So negative 3 up 2. This is going to be my vertex. My focus is at negative 3, negative 1. So negative 3, negative 1 is my focus. My parabola always opens up towards my focus. So this is going to be my parabola. So it's a negative parabola. the distance between your vertex and your focus is the same as your vertex and your directrix, which is going to be kind of hard because I didn't draw this very big. So there are 1, 2, 3 spaces between my vertex and my focus. So that means between the vertex and the directrix there's 3 spaces. So 1, 2, 3, which would be up here. So again, I kind of messed up here. That right there is going to be your directrix. Your equation of your directrix is always going to be y is equal to something. So wherever it's crossing the y-axis. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that would be at y is equal to 5. My axis of symmetry is always going to be a vertical line through the vertex and the focus. So if I draw a dotted line through the vertex and the focus, that's going to be at x is equal to -3. So that's going to be my axis of symmetry. So far I have the directrix and the axis of symmetry. Now I just need the equation of the parabola. And that's always going to be y is equal to 1 over 4p times x minus h squared plus k. So my vertex that they give us is -3, 2. And those variables are h, k. So that means I know that my h is going to be -3 and my k is going to be 2. And to find p, I'm going to use the focus. So the focus is -3, -1. And that's always h, k plus p. So this should all be in your notes, all these things. So I already said my h is -3. My k plus p is equal to the -1. Well, I know that k is equal to 2. So 2 plus p equals -1 means that p is going to be equal to -3. So this and this, all these variables right here, that's what I'm going to plug into my equation of my parabola. So that means my equation is going to be y is equal to 1 over 4p, 4 times -3 times x minus -3 squared plus 2. And simplified, my answer would be y is equal to -1/12 times x plus 3 squared plus 2. And that concludes number 9. And we are going to do number 10 together just because I wanted to do number 10 together. So for number 10, it says find the mean, median, mode, variance, and standard deviation. We are going to use your calculator for that. So the first thing that you can find would be the median. So for number 10, I don't think it asks for the range. So the median is the middle number. So 1, 2, 3. So the middle would be between -1 and 0, which would be -1/2. The mode is the number that shows up the most. And in this case, there is none because there's no number that shows up more than once. And then I'm going to solve for the mean, the mean, the standard deviation, and the variance all separately using my calculator. So in your calculator, you always want to do second 7 first, which is going to clear your calculator. If it says error, there is nothing entered in there, so I'm just going to clear that. Now I'm going to enter all my variables. So I'm going to start with -4. So if I make 4 negative, then I'm going to press this button that saves it in the calculator. So 2, save, -1, save, 0, save, 3, save, 5, save. So I've saved 6 numbers, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 6 numbers. Now, to find the mean, you're going to use second x squared. So that tells me that the mean is 0.167. Then I'm going to do the standard deviation, which is always second divide. So that would be 3.02. And the variance is just whatever the standard deviation is squared. So I'm going to hit the x squared button. So my variance is 9.15. 4. And that is your results for number 10. So for number 10, you use your calculator to complete that problem. I hope that helps you guys get started on your lesson. This is lesson 69. I hope you guys all have a great weekend. Bye.